officially introduced to the Wizards fan base as the 26th head coach for the franchise, Brian Keefe, alongside Wizards GM Will Dawkins, who, of course, is sitting to my right. So, Will, first of all, thank you again for taking time to hang out with us here.
Always fun to be with you guys.
We're glad to have you. It's a great day for the franchise, great day for the organization. Just your initial thoughts now being on this side of the press conference and the introductory, your thoughts about right now.
This is one of my favorite press conferences.
Yeah.
You get to welcome someone that I've known for a long time in Brian, someone who cares deeply about basketball at his core, a Massachusetts guy who gets it, but also really cares about the town in D.C. and really invests in people. I didn't have to answer too many questions today. I kind of got to lead off, and then everybody wanted to ask him what was going on. So for me, today was a good day.
Indeed, and I know you did your due diligence in your coaching search, so we won't be exhaustive in that. But I do want to know, what was the yes factor to Brian? Why did you finally decide that he was the guy to lead this train?
As we talked about at the end of the season, we wanted to make sure we did a legitimate search. That was important to us and important to Ted to make sure that we looked out both internally and externally for the best candidate. And we were intentional and deliberate in the way our organization is run. We want to make the best decision, the most informed decision. So it took us some time to learn the other candidates to the same level we knew Brian. So that's the only fair to do that. So our timeline was our timeline. I think we stuck to it. There probably wasn't just one thing about Brian that stood out, but the more you went back to him in terms of like his background, his ability to work with players, his investment, how genuine he is as a person, but then also the different phases that he's been at with franchises and the different phases and experience he's had with Hall of Fame players, all-star players, players when they're rookies. Like, he connects the dots. And for us, we're looking for someone that can do that. But also the player development background, now you're a head coach. How are you going to hire a new staff and a staff that believes in that as well and still make sure you're giving the guys the minutes and the opportunities? And he sees things a lot of the ways we do. We're very aligned, and that helps when you're starting a rebuild like ours.
Well, speaking of starting, we're now at a point in the season where, the off season, but
jump season.
I was going to say jump season.
There
That's what we'll officially call it. What advantage does it give you to have your head coach in place ahead of the draft, ahead of Summer League?
Yeah, I think the continuity piece is important. It wasn't something that we feel we needed to rush. The goal is to make sure we had him here for the draft workouts that are coming up so we can connect with the players and kind of have more of an idea of the style we want to play. Because you definitely want to draft a guy that's comfortable here.
Sure.
It's kind of a two-way street. It's got to work both ways. So having him in place June was important. Our players have been crushing it. We've had our lead assistants and David Vanderpool and Cody Toppert and the guys running the gym. I give our guys a ton of credit. They took like 2-3 weeks off, and then 8 or 9 of them were back in the gym, getting after it on their own will. So before the second round had started for everybody, our guys were back in it.
That's nice.
And you see a lot of them show up today. So we've been working. And to have Brian here now to kind of oversee everything is just a benefit for us.
Indeed. Speaking of draft picks, you guys have a great history of draft picks and obviously putting together winning organizations. When you move forward now, you talk about draft picks, prospective free agents, what's going to be your sell to, say, a vet that's out there that's a free agent without giving away your trade secrets? Because I know that conversation really entails the player and what they bring individually.
Yeah, sure.
But what's the overall general message as to why players should really consider the Washington Wizards up-and-coming organization?
Yeah, there's no doubt we're an organization that's in transition. And we're looking for the right people that are willing to be trendsetters, the ones that don't mind putting in that work and like setting examples for other young players and being mentors in terms of those that are more experienced. But the young guys, I think there's a huge opportunity to play. There's a huge opportunity to create what the next version of the Washington Wizards is and what it's going to be. So for them, I think it's a challenge, but it should also be motivating, the guys that we take in the draft. You're going to have a chance to be an impactful player and shape what Wizards basketball looks like and shape what the DMV community is watching for the next 5, 6, 7 years down the line. And I think guys are encouraged by that. So the draft is coming up in a few weeks. We got a little bit of time before we got to make that decision, but it's a basketball city. It's a beautiful town, and I don't think you got to sell D.C., so we'll just sell the opportunity.
Indeed, and I'm looking at a league now that we're seeing guys like LeBron and Steph are kind of getting into the sunset portion of their career. It's a very young NBA right now. It's a very young league, and so I'm just curious about how important is it to have a head coach that is able to develop those young players and build those relationships, as you mentioned, from the ground up.
The connectivity is everything now. At the end of the day, when you're watching these playoffs, the acumen matters. The X's and O's do matter. But getting them to a point where they're playing hard and playing connected and on a string, both offensively and defensively, you have to be connected with players to do that. And players are tempted by a lot of other people and a lot of other things right now that they didn't have to deal with back in the day. And you have different people pulling on them. So when you have a strong relationship and you can kind of guide and direct them, be a teacher, be a mentor, but also be a coach. That's important, and that's what Brian is. That's what Brian has done, and he'll continue to do.
There was a quote that we ran during the conference that he said he's a great motivator.
Yes.
How important is it for you to have someone that is aligned with you conceptually and can also implement the same standard that you all have and get guys going in that direction?
Yeah, I don't want it to put it where we're always going to be in sync. Like, we're not always going to be in sync.
Fair enough.
But we have enough of a conversation, enough humility, enough trust to have real conversations, and that's going to get us through those moments. But having a coach that is all about those things and wants to hit on that and wants to get it right and won't let things slip, that's kind of what you're looking for, especially where we're at. But to be honest, any team should look for that.
And I dare say, adding the pinch of honesty that he shared earlier. I love the candor. I love that. He just being.
We'll get him to open up a little more about himself. He'll share on everyone else, but not himself.
He doesn't talk about himself. It's so hilarious. But when you talk about building those relationships, Tony, I know you can piggyback on this about having such an honest, proverbial open door policy, where guys feel that they can be able to be honest with you. How important is it, especially when you're trying to reshape an organization, to have that there?
I think when Michael first got hired and set his vision for the organization, trustworthiness, honesty, that stuff is really, really important, as well as joy, competition. And you want to hire people that believe in that as well. And I think he's done a really good job of that. So we want to be a place that players do their best work. We want to be a place where staff do their best work and they enjoy being there. So I think we took a massive step from when we first got here in terms of the environment and being team-friendly, player-friendly, but that doesn't mean you do everything they say or everything they want, but we collaborate with them. And we want to build this place to where they feel they're doing their best work and they feel supported and have every resource to do that. And Mr. Leonsis makes sure we have those. So at the end of the day, it sounds hard, but if you really have the right people who are connected and aligned, it makes it a lot easier to come to work every day.
Indeed.
You know, we talked about earlier how we felt Brian really had an advantage being able to coach the team over the course of this season toward the end, and you really got to get a real good 360-degree look at him as a coach. Can you talk about how important that was to you and Michael as far as your evaluation of him and the decision ultimately to give him the job?
Yeah, you never know until they're in the seat, right?
Right.
So we've seen him for 18 years as an impactful assistant coach with a lot of mindsets, and you have the conversations of, if you were in this position, what would you do? How would you have done that differently? And he's not one to shy. He always looks for critical feedback. So you get that 39-game stint. I thought the very first day when we brought him in, we touched on some of the reasons why we were putting him in place, and he implemented them right away. So credit to him for doing that. I think whenever you have an opportunity to see somebody in that lead role, you learn some things you can tweak, some things that you think, hey, we want to carry this forward with you moving forward if you were to be in this lead position. But though he was the interim, he was never the front runner in the entire competition. We wanted to make sure we went back and went through this candidate search and took time to get to know every single person on the same level, and then ask basketball questions, ask development questions, ask cultural, environmental questions. And he was the best candidate at the end of the day. So I feel comfortable that helped him, but that wasn't the only reason.